All right, so you know how we've all heard about those big Power Five schools throwing around crazy money at their
Oh,
athletes?
yeah. It seems like they have these endless
Well,
budgets.
get this. A smaller school like NDSU is actually kind of turning the tables a bit. They've figured out how to compete not by outspending everyone, but by building this really smart and honestly really supportive system.
It's pretty impressive, especially when you consider that NDSU's is leading the way in the FCS with not just one, not two, but three different ways they're supporting their athletes financially.
And get this, they're doing it without just trying to like, I don't know, buy a bunch of superstar recruits.
Right, exactly. It's way more balanced than that.
So, okay, let's break it down because I'm super curious about this. The first one is something called full cost of attendance.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that NDSU has been doing this since way back in 2016. They were ahead of the curve on this one.
So what does it actually cover? Is it just tuition and housing?
It's more than that. Like, think about it. If you're a college athlete, you've got all these extra expenses.
Yeah, true. Like traveling back home to see your family or,
Yeah.
just making sure you can actually afford healthy food.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging that being a student athlete comes with all sorts of financial pressures.
I feel like for a lot of these athletes, they're so focused on training and competing, it can be easy to overlook the real costs.
Right, and full cost of attendance helps take some of that pressure off so they can focus on both their academics and their sport.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is what they're calling Alston payments.
Yeah, these ones are pretty cool because they're specifically tied to academic performance.
Wait, really? So it's like a bonus for getting good grades?
You got it. And it's not just for the scholarship athletes either. Even walk-ons can earn these payments.
That's amazing. So how much are we talking about here?
It can range from $3,000 to almost $6,000 per year, depending on the athlete's grades.
Wow, that's a pretty good incentive to hit the books.
It really is. And NDSU isn't messing around with this. They
No.
actually secured a big endowment to make sure they can keep funding it long term.
That shows some serious commitment. Makes me think about all those textbook costs.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right, so that's full cost of attendance and Alston payments.
Yeah.
Now, the big one that everyone's been talking about is NIL deals.
Ah, yes. Name, image, and likeness. This has been a total game changer for college sports.
It's crazy, right? Some of these Power Five schools are offering these massive NIL deals to athletes who haven't even played a single game yet.
It can feel like a bidding war, honestly.
Makes you wonder what's going to happen to college athletics.
Yeah, it's definitely raised a lot of questions, and that's where NDSU's third pillar of support comes in, the Green and Gold Collective.
Okay, tell me more about this because it sounds like they're doing NIL a little differently.
They definitely are. The Green and Gold Collective is completely fan-driven. They launched it in 2023 to create paid NIL opportunities for NDSU athletes.
So like a bunch of fans pooled their money together.
Pretty much. But here's the thing. It's not just about funneling money to the football or basketball stars.
So they're making sure athletes in all sports can benefit.
Exactly. And we actually have some insights from NDSU's quarterbacks, Cam Miller and Cole Payton, about how the collective has affected them.
Oh, wow. What do they have to say?
Well, both of them talked about how it's given them these amazing opportunities to really connect with the community and local businesses.
I can imagine that's pretty special for them.
Oh, yeah. And Cole Payton mentioned how it actually encourages athletes to go out and support other NDSU teams, too.
Oh, I love that. It creates a sense of unity, right?
For sure. And there have been some really heartwarming stories, too, about how the collective has helped athletes out in tough times.
Like what?
Well, one athlete needed help to travel for a family funeral, and the collective was able to help out financially.
That's so kind.
Right. And another athlete was able to bring his family to senior night because of the collective support.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. It's not just about the flashy stuff, it's about the real life moments, too.
Exactly. NDSU is recognizing that these are young people with lives outside of sports, and sometimes they just need some extra help.
So it sounds like NDSU has put together a pretty impressive support system for its athletes. It's not about trying to outspend those Power Five schools, but more about building a solid foundation.
You got it. It's about investing in those athletes and recognizing that they need support on and off the field.
And it's got to help with both recruiting new athletes and keeping the ones they have.
Oh, for sure. We know some athletes were worried about leaving for bigger programs because of financial pressures, but the collective has really helped ease those concerns.
So it's giving them a reason to stay and be a part of something special at NDSU.
Exactly. And we can actually see it happening, too. There are some athletes who had offers from Power 5 schools, but chose to stay at NDSU.
That's a pretty big statement. It shows that they believe in what NDSU is doing.
It really does. NDSU is proving that you don't need Power 5 money to create an amazing and supportive environment for your athletes. And you know what's really cool? While they might not be matching those huge Power $5 amounts, they're doing something even more powerful.
What do you mean?
They're building this incredible sense of community and shared purpose.
Yeah, that's something you can't just buy. It makes the athletes feel valued, not just for their athletic abilities, but as people.
Exactly.
All right, so we've got these three pillars: full cost of attendance, Alston Payments, and the Green and Gold Collective. But before we move on, I want to dig a little deeper into the collective itself.
Sure. What are you curious about?
Well, you mentioned earlier that it's fan-driven, which really caught my attention.
Yeah, it's pretty unique. It shows that the community really takes ownership and gets involved.
It's not just wealthy donors calling the shots.
Exactly. The Green and Gold Collective is all about the NDSU fan base coming together to support their athletes.
So how does it actually work? How do they raise the money and decide who to support?
Well, they have different membership options, so fans can contribute at whatever level they can afford.
So you don't have to be a millionaire to make a difference.
Not at all. And they have a really awesome merch store where part of the profits go directly back to the athletes.
So you can rock your bison gear and support the athletes at the same time.
It's a win-win. And it's a really smart way to get everyone involved.
But how do they make sure the money's being used effectively?
They've set up a system that prioritizes support for athletes across all sports. It's not just about focusing on a few star players.
So it's about lifting up everyone. I like that. More schools should do that.
I agree. And to make it even better, they've got community engagement activities where athletes give back and connect with the fans.
Oh, like what kinds of things?
Well, we've heard about athletes reading to kids at local schools, participating in charity events, and even mentoring younger athletes.
That's amazing. It shows that college athletics can really make a positive impact on the community.
Absolutely.
This is all really fascinating. We've covered a lot, but it feels like we're just scratching the surface of this whole NDSU model.
It really is a fascinating approach.
It's not just about keeping up with the big schools. It's about doing things differently in a way that feels more compassionate and well-rounded.
You hit the nail on the head.
So before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what stands out to you the most? What are your initial thoughts on NDSU's approach?
You know, it's not just about one school strategy. It's about maybe, possibly, a whole new way of looking at college athletics.
And your perspective as a listener is really important here. We want this to make you think, to spark some ideas.
So take a minute and think about what you've heard. What are the big takeaways? What stands out? And we'll come back in just a sec with some final thoughts on what this NDSU model could mean for the future of college sports.
It's wild to think about how much college athletics has changed. I mean, for the longest time, scholarships were pretty much it, right?
Nice tuition, room and board, the basic. Right. But things have gotten way more demanding for student athletes.
Well, yeah, the competition is fierce.
It is. And all the extra stuff that comes with it, it costs money.
Travel for the athletes, their families, better training, nutrition. The time commitment alone is huge.
It all adds up, for sure. And that's where this whole concept of full cost of attendance comes in. NDSU actually saw this coming and started doing it back in 2016. Way ahead of the curve.
Wow, that's impressive, especially for an FCS school.
It was a big deal. It meant athletes were getting more financial support beyond the regular scholarship, to help with those real-life costs.
So it wasn't just about making things fair academically, but recognizing that, hey, being a student athlete is expensive.
Exactly. NDSU was basically saying, we're invested in you, the whole athlete.
I like that. So on top of that, there are the Alston Payments, which are specifically tied to academics, which I find super interesting.
Right. It's such a great way to encourage academic success, like a bonus for getting those good grades.
And it's not just for the scholarship athletes either, right?
Nope. Everyone can earn them. Walk Ons too.
That's huge. It recognizes that everyone on the team contributes.
Exactly. So depending on your grades, you could get anywhere from $3,000 to almost $6,000 a year.
Wow, that's not nothing.
Definitely not. And to show how serious they are, NDSU set up an endowment specifically for this. So it's not like they're scrambling for money every year.
They've really thought this through. It's a long-term commitment.
It is. And then, of course, you've got the newest thing shaking up college sports, NIL deal.
Yeah. Name, image, and likeness, it's been a whirlwind. The NCAA opened the door and things got crazy fast.
It has. Especially for schools like NDSU, they don't have those Power 5 budgets.
But instead of trying to compete with those huge NIL deals, they went in a different direction.
They did with the Green and Gold Collective, which we talked about earlier.
Right.
Fan-driven, pooling resources, making sure NIL opportunities are there for all their athletes, every sport.
They're really spreading the love.
They are. And remember what those athletes, Cam Miller and Cole Payton, said? It's not even just about the money for them. It's about feeling like their community values them and that they can grow their own brand.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Right. And those stories about helping with the family funeral or bringing someone to senior night.
Yeah, those were powerful.
It shows that NDSU cares about the whole person.
It does. It goes way beyond just the sport.
It's about recognizing that these athletes have lives outside of athletics, and sometimes they need a helping hand.
It really makes NDSU stand out. They're competitive, but also kind.
Right. They're showing that you can be successful without being ruthless.
They're proving that you can build a strong program by focusing on community, academics, and really supporting your athletes.
And it's working.
It is.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up this part about NDSU's approach, what stands out to you the most? What are you thinking so far?
You know, this isn't just about NDSU. It's like, what if this is the future of college athletics?
That's a big question.
It is. And your thoughts as a listener are super important. We want this to resonate with you, to make you think critically.
So pause for a second and think about everything you've heard. What are you taking away from this?
And we'll be right back with some final thoughts on what this NDSU model could mean for college sports in the future.
All right, we're back to wrap up our deep dive on how NDSU is changing the game in college athletics.
You know, it's refreshing to see a school like NDSU that isn't just trying to throw money at the problem.
Yeah, it's not a race to see who can offer the biggest NIL deals.
It really isn't. NDSU is showing that there's a better way, a more sustainable way to build a successful program.
And they're doing it with this three-pronged approach we talked about, right?
Exactly. Full cost of attendance, Alston payments, and the green and gold NIL collective. And we've heard from the athletes themselves, it's making a real difference.
Yeah, those stories from Cam Miller and Cole Payton were really powerful.
They were. And those stories about the collective stepping up to help athletes in those tough moments, those are the things that stick with you.
Like helping with a family funeral or bringing someone to senior night. That's huge.
It shows they care. It shows they understand that these are young people with lives outside of sports.
And that sometimes they need a little extra help.
NDSU gets it. And, you know, it's not just about being nice. It's actually helping them keep their players.
Right, because you always hear about those big schools poaching players with those crazy offers.
It happens all the time, but NDSU is creating an environment where athletes want to stay.
Because they feel valued, they feel supported.
Exactly. And that goes back to what we talked about, that strong foundation they've built, community, academics, and support for all their athletes.
It's like they're saying, we might not have the deepest pockets, but we're going to take care of you.
Exactly. And that message is resonating.
It really is. So as we wrap up, I think the big question is, could this work at other schools?
That's what I'm wondering, too. Could this be the future of college athletics? What if more schools adopted this model?
It's kind of a radical idea, right?
Yeah.
But maybe it's what we need.
Maybe it is. Imagine college sports being less about those huge contracts and more about community and creating a fair playing field for everyone.
That's a world I'd like to see.
And the great thing is, it doesn't have to be this massive, impossible change. It starts with a different way of thinking, a commitment to supporting these athletes as people, not just players.
And involving the community.
Absolutely. Fans have a huge role to play here. By supporting initiatives like the Green and Gold Collective, we can show that we want something different.
We want a system that's fairer, more sustainable, and puts the well-being of the athletes first.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, the future of college athletics is in our hands.
We have the power to choose what kind of world we want to create.
We do.
Well, this has been The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.
We'll catch you next time.